Verbum caro factum est.
Et habitavit in nobis.
Those are the Latin words of St. John's Gospel. It said, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And so we thought in this video we'd take a few minutes to talk about the Incarnation of Jesus Christ. The Incarnation, simply, is the eternal Son of God, the second person of the Blessed Trinity, took to himself a human nature. And the two joined together perfectly, without mingling, but in such a way that the human nature was not destroyed, because of course our nature is not meant to be divine, but yet they operated as one person with two natures, two wills, and so on.
We see a beautiful instance of this every time we come to Mass. It may not be something that we see because of what's going on, but every time the priest is at the altar preparing the gifts, he'll pour the wine and then pour a drop of water with a prayer mentioning that word, which is a wonderful image of this that we see every day, perhaps, or at least once a week.
St. Athanasius had a somewhat daring commentary, if you will, on the Incarnation, and he said that God became man so that man might become God. And what he means by that isn't that we are all of a sudden one of the persons of the Trinity, but he means that God has made it possible that we can be divinized, sanctified by the very life of God, which is the life of grace. When Our Lady is conceived immaculately and then gives birth to the Lord, who of course also has no sin, grace is in the world in a way that it never was before. And the whole purpose of him coming to us is to transform us. And to do that, he first has to take away what keeps us from being united with him, which is sin. And he does that, but doesn't just take away, but then gifts his grace, his love and his life that actually is in us.
Oh, happy fall, the necessary sin of Adam that won for us so great a Redeemer. You know, it's easy to see the Incarnation of Christ becoming man as a response to sin, which indeed it absolutely is. But you know, we hear that the gift is not like the transgression. And as a Christian, we have to understand that the gift of the Incarnation of Christ is ultimately the gift of God himself, not just what he's doing for us, but the revelation of God, you know, making the Father known, sending the Spirit into the world. So it's ultimately God's sharing of himself with us in a very profound, substantial way. You know, which is why we do things like bow during the Creed at Mass. We bow because of this fact of the indwelling of Christ in the Eucharist, you know, extended from his incarnation into the Eucharist, and this presence that so much is a vibrant part of our life as a Christian people.
Sometimes it's good for us to think about these things individually. What does it mean that Christ became flesh to redeem us? You know, so we can think of it in sort of a general term, like us, the corporate group of sinners. But St. Paul has this powerful line where he says that even if I was the only sinner, Christ would have done everything he did just for me. And so when you think about the Word became flesh, it was not just with a corporate understanding, but with an individual, specific love for each and every person that's ever going to live on this earth and that ever did live on this earth. And we have to look at ourselves, as St. John says, through the reality of the Incarnation as children of God, which is a totally transforming understanding of who you are and who I am.